Hi, I'm Della, and I'm in second year BMOS, and you're listening to 94.9 CHRW.
You're listening to the Forum on CHRW. This is a place for students to ask questions and hopefully foster conversations. It is a safe place for students to come in and ask the questions that might be on their mind without fear of how they're going to be judged. It is for the students and by the students, which means you're not going to hear lecturers and professors come in, but it's simply going to be students asking questions and maybe sparking a conversation. And we're back. No, we didn't go anywhere. We were still here. We were actually just discussing what we were going to talk about while we were listening to the commercials. Again, I'm joined by Athena and Bianca. Thank you again so much for having this conversation with me today. And now the hard one. You ready for it? My question is, because of the connotation that feminism as a word has taken on in modern society, is the word feminism necessary? Or is feminism necessary? Or should it be replaced with something like equality or equalism?
I would say, I feel like Bianca's more informed about feminism as a movement than I am, but not at all. Personally, I think that feminism has value to be kept, I guess, just because so much has, because even though there are negative connotations that some people associate with it, there are also a lot of really good things that people associate with it, and I feel like a lot of that, like the more kind of moderate feminism, like the not like, militant feminism, has been like the moderate kind of more true to what I personally believe feminism is, has been brought more and more to the forefront, I guess, recently. So I feel like that's hopefully a trend that will continue, and people will see that, feminism isn't something that says, females over males. It's something that stands for equality between genders. However, there are people, like I've seen on Facebook, people who are like, why is it called feminism? Like men saying, I don't believe in feminism because it means that females are better than males. I'm like, that's not true. But there are people who think that way. So I think that is a consideration, I guess, for the use of the word. But I personally think that we should still keep the use of it and not change it to something like, equality. Because I think if that's what we started off as, if we started off, promoting, the whole, movement with something like equality, then absolutely. But because the movement has been termed feminism for so long now, I think, and I think it brings into the forefront the fact that females, after all these decades of advocating for female rights, females are still, making less money and don't have all the opportunities that men do. So I think it's important to keep the femme part of feminism in there.
Yeah, no, I think that you hit the ball right there. That it's still incredibly relevant. I think that's why we need it. And I want to just clarify. So when you say militant feminism, are you thinking radical feminism? Is that like Pussy Riot,
yeah.
like that group?
And you guys all know how I feel about this one is everydayfeminism.com, Jezebel.com.
Oh yeah.
There are a number of websites that are gaining massive popularity because they are just so radical feminism. Militant feminism, though. I guess the feminism movement, for your history buffs, started out militant, particularly with the suffragettes in the UK in the early 1800s and stuff like that, and blowing things up.
Yeah.
But no, I'm sorry. I guess my language, and here's the problem with language.
Okay.
And everything is, no, I mean more particularly radical feminists that are really pushing particularly one gender away from the conversation.
Yeah, I just want to mention something that I remember learning in class, and I'm doing.
What? You're learning in class?
Gender Justice and Change. It's a women's studies
Oh my
course.
God. People are learning in university?
There are actually a lot of guys in that class, which is cool. It's a really packed class. And
cool.
So one of the things that our professor, she mentioned was that she's like, I'd first like to reword the word radical, because when people think of radical feminism, people think crazy, throwing things. And of course, like you said, it comes from the past where, the suffragette movement, where things did get, very violent because women felt that that was the only way that men would respond, because that's the way, I'm not going to say agree with this completely, but how men communicated or got each other's attention that way to some degree. So in some ways, that's what they felt they had to resort to. So what she wanted to say was that let's think of being radical as like addressing a problem at the root, going back to its origins, and and addressing the problems head on, not getting, like I said, really confused with the buzzword of feminism, and just think of it as, how is it going to serve you? How is it going to privilege your own rights? Like, how is it going to get yourself forward? Think about of it in a broader, like, say, intersectional perspective, or how is it going to serve minorities, people with disabilities, different sexualities, etc. And think about, how did feminism start? Why are we fighting for this? And why is it still relevant today? So I think in terms of should we eradicate the word, I think it just comes with educating people. I don't know, I'm a big person who thinks that we should actually have, like, even in elementary schools, have a course on feminism and just on the history of it. And so people can understand and think of it in a different way, and understand that this is how these are the negative connotations, and why have these arisen, and why do people frame it as being people who are women who are like witch hunter, man hating, like lesbians or whatever, which are all these different connotations that it has. But yeah.
Well, and so I'm a firm proponent of more education, more conversation, obviously.
Yeah.
However, I've been in schools and I've had classes with teachers who are pushing agendas. And who really, particularly when we come to feminism, and the reason I bring up this conversation, this particular word, is men are quite literally being driven away from the conversation. One half of the equation doesn't want to engage in it.
Yeah.
I will guarantee that if we were to go down right to the middle of the UCC and start talking to guys about feminism, there would be a whole lot less guys in the UCC.
Yeah, it makes them feel uncomfortable. But I kind of like it.
I got nothing for that. I don't know. But really, like we're guys are afraid because they get attacked. Not particularly by either of you, but particularly on the internet. And that anonymity of the internet has really brought out sort of this problem.
The We the Kings website.
So here's my problem.
There's a Return of the Kings.
Return. Give me a second. Give me a second. I'm almost there.
Sorry.
We have Everyday Feminism. We have Jezebel. There's a couple of others that people keep forwarding me, and I don't know why. But I think, like the particularly the women at Everyday Feminism would go off the deep end if I were to say that they are the exact opposite and the reason for Return of Kings. And the name of the website is Return of Kings. And please understand, if you ever go to Return of Kings, these guys are horrible. This is the exact reason why we can't, as guys, have nice things. Because the second we try, these guys come along and ruin it for everybody. But the problem is, their idea is that they need a safe space. Oh, I hate these phrases. Away from women. Because you go on the internet, and even me, who's I firmly believe in social justice, I firmly believe in equality, and people keep inundating me with websites that I'm just like, oh my God, what the heck is wrong with you? And so the problem is guys are, like afraid to engage because of sites like this and because of conversations like this. So how do we remove that connotation? Is there a way to return to a level of moderation? Is it possible? Because to be perfectly honest, I would love to see things like Return of Kings go away forever. Their ideas are outdated and unnecessary. But unfortunately, the ideas presented on sites like Everyday Feminism and Jezebel are also unnecessary. Particularly the way they're worded and formed. So we'll come back to, how do we bring modernism back? Particularly into feminism.
It definitely becomes difficult when you have two very binary oppositions, like Return of the Kings and then Everyday Feminism. Of course, if you have something, I don't know how old that website is and how old, say, Jezebel or Everyday Feminism is, like what came first. That'd be interesting. Because
yeah, that's actually a really good question. But either way,
Yeah.
one is the
Yeah.
one is a reaction.
yeah, one is a reaction of the other. So how can we moderate this? I think-
Or even not even on the internet, like here on campus, because we all know there are both really bad guys and women who take it just a little bit too far.
It's so difficult.
Now I'm putting you on the
very-
spot. Let's solve feminism right here, right now.
I know it's very difficult. A very easy, like out of the way response, and this is so biased because it's my program. But I'm like, every guy should take MIT because it just like it allows you to just critique media and social norms and everything, and kind of see through all the propaganda, the ideologies that are just imposed on us, and why like we go through the male gaze, the female gaze as well, and so that goes back to my stance on education, which of course it's an easy way to get out, but it's not always accessible to everybody. It's not going to be condoned in every institution. There's still always going to be ways that people of different beliefs are going to slip in and have very different stances on feminism. But I don't know, it's very difficult. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't have like one quick fix solution. No, I agree with Bianca. Education is super important. And I guess like beyond like something that's like really, I guess like major, like, taking like a course or a whole program or implementing something in elementary school, which are all great ideas. But like you said, like may not be super accessible or easy to implement. I think just like something that we can do on like a daily basis is just like if you like see people like on like the internet or like various like social media or sites like who have like really radically different ideas, I guess, like either don't engage, like don't like like fuel it, like because they might be a troll, or like if you do engage, like I guess explain to them in like calm and rational manner like what exactly feminism is, because some people really are just like uneducated and they just don't know. So yeah, I mean, just like maybe don't do it to people you don't know at all, but like maybe if it's like somebody who you kind of know, who you feel like has like would be able to like you could, I guess, like get the message across to, like they're not so set in their ways that they wouldn't respond to anything, then maybe just like start with that. Like if you have like a friend maybe who like doesn't really understand what feminism is, I messed it up too, or like why you are a feminist, and just like explain that like not like radical feminism or whatever term we're using to describe, I guess, the less moderate version of it.
Extreme feminism?
Yeah, I guess extreme or
exactly.
like over. Also, sorry, one thing I think it's also showing guys or girls who have different views about feminism. Maybe I don't know. I one time showed a guy friend the site Return of the Kings during the time where they wanted to rally guys up and start that whole incident. So and I was like, I just like came into Res, and I was like, oh my god, I was like raging. I was like, this is unbelievable, like this is so scary. And then my friend, he was like, what's wrong, and I'm like, here, look at the website. He's like, what the F is this? Like there actually is some, like he couldn't believe what this was. He's like, who are these guys, like do they actually do this? And my friend, like he likes to say that he's a feminist, but there's some things that I do have to be like, are you sure? Like, remember what you just said a few minutes ago? Like, it's kind of against what you're saying. And then he sees something that's, I think, a little too extreme, and understands that, maybe we do need to encourage more conversation about what feminism is and why we need it, and to stop I don't know, people like this on social media who take it a little too far. So
I can't remember if it was part of our pre-conversation or I said it on the radio, but I'll reiterate myself just to say, I personally think the guys like at Return of Kings are so far beyond okay.
Yeah.
That it's it is almost laughable if they weren't serious. And I think that goes with a lot of things. And I think that's sort of the problem that that I'm having personally, and a lot of guys I know are having with the feminist issue, is you read certain things and you start wondering, like, is this serious? Am I being trolled? But at the same time, it's there, it's in there, and it's part of the conversation. And so that sticks in the back of your mind going, he wants to talk about feminism. No, thank you. I have much better ways to deal with my day. And unfortunately, that's the way a lot of people start thinking, is that, I could engage in this conversation or I go have some Starbucks, And to me, that's indicative of the whole problem is feminism and equality are major issues, as you pointed out, as somebody pointed out. I'm looking at two different people right now, and I have no idea. That there is still a long way to go. There is still a glass ceiling. There are still inequalities when it comes to jobs. My wife had a horrible time just after my son was born, actually. It's one of the reasons we moved away from Toronto, was because they refused to have a reasonable schedule for her to work, and gave it to somebody without a child. Actually, it was kind of ridiculous. Like, there are so many things that we have to work on, but the second you scare away half the conversation, then nothing happens.
Yeah.
You brought up Justin Trudeau earlier, which I still don't know how I feel about him. I'm not gonna lie. He's growing on me, but okay. I voted for him at least. When he put together his cabinet this year, they made a big thing about it being equal, and I think his comment was probably the best he could have done, which was, because it's 2016. Like, why is this even an issue at the moment? Like, I understand why it's an issue, because how many female directors are there right now that get recognition? I'm going to look at the MIT student.
Okay. How many that are really recognized? Yeah. There's Deepa Mehta. There's.
When was the last time? I think she is absolutely fantastic. I absolutely love her work. When was the last time she did anything that was recognized in mainstream media?
I don't. Honestly, I feel like it was her last film. I'm so sorry. The title is escaping me. It was at TIFF, I think, this past year. It was water. It was some element.
Yeah, it was it would have been the fourth of her Elemental series.
Yeah. Also, I saw two, actually. I forget their names, but I know the films. I saw two during TIFF, which was great. I actually got to meet one of them. I can't pronounce her name, but she directed Mustang, which was nominated for one of the best foreign films at this past Academy Award, and that film got a lot of acclaim. It's from Turkey. Beautiful film. Cast is all young women. And I spoke to this lady, and I held her hand, and I was like, thank you so much for creating this film. You have no idea how much it means to me and so many other young girls, but especially to young girls in Turkey who are going through these same issues. In the film, also, Patricia Rosima or something, I think, she actually came to speak in my writer's craft class in high school. She's Canadian. Ingrid Veninger, she's a big Canadian director. I don't know. These are Canadian. I'm going to interest. Well,
let's not get into the Canadian film industry.
Okay.
But how many mainstream media movies that make it into theaters, that make over $30 million opening weekend, are directed by a woman?
There's none. And if they are, they're indie or something, and it's
exactly. Mainstream music seems to be a little bit more forgiving, but at the same time, you have to fit a mold, you have to fit an image, you have to fit, and this is the problem with Kesha. She started getting out there, she started expressing herself, for lack of a better term, and kind of look at the situation she's in.
I mean, I feel like women recently, I'm not of course there still needs to be more improvement with how women are treated in the industry, but I think recently they're gaining more autonomy, especially with people like Beyonce and Rihanna, who their past two albums, I think, and also women of color, have taken a lot of control over their image and how they want to present themselves through their music. I don't know if this is going into another territory, but like I don't know if you've listened to Auntie, which is Rihanna's past album, but it's very, very different from any of her other stuff, which is very like, you know, kind of banger singles, or which a lot were written by other people. So I think this one, she kind of takes more control of it, and I think more women in the industry are taking control of their images, writing their own music, trying something a little different that nobody's going to expect. But I think, yeah, again, back to Kesha, and how her image of being promiscuous, or if some people want to say that, I don't know, I could think of it in other terms, but anyways, I guess it does add something else in the mix that people are going to frame her as being, oh, well, you know, because you present yourself that way, you're kind of asking for it. It was coming your way, which is awful. I'm not going to, that's awful. So I feel like,
that statement in and of itself, and I understand, and I know that's not what you believe.
No,
but
not at all.
Just that statement itself makes my skin crawl. I'm not going to lie. So I guess I should move back here so you can all hear me. I guess we're coming towards the end of it, and I like talking, and I think conversation is the key to everything. But at the same time, I'm going to ask you two ladies, where do we go from here? Where do we go from here with feminism? What's the next step? How do we, the way things are, looking at this event, everything else, how do we move forward? Do you have any thoughts on that?
In particular, like talking about Kesha's issue, or like bringing feminism to the forefront.
Bringing, okay. I think.
All right.
Or if you want to specifically talk about Kesha, please.
Do you want to go first? I've been.
I'm still formulating my thoughts, so if you'd like to go for it, feel free.
Okay. Sorry, this is something that like I always say via like social media, and I'm trying to put it into words. I think first and foremost, to change the way that people think about feminism and bring more awareness, is to first, like, why we don't see women in media, why we don't see them in leadership roles, is because we don't give opportunity. And when we don't give them opportunity, we don't give the opportunity for a young girl who's also looking up to these women who don't exist yet. So once we give opportunity to young women to pursue their goals, to like your wife, to have an adequate schedule for maternity leave, we need to respect that, you know, everybody has deserves the chance to be given the same opportunity to direct in a film or act in a movie, because then once we see young girls seeing women in the landscape, they too believe that they can see themselves in those roles as well. And then it just becomes this wonderful cycle of women supporting each other and men supporting women, and young women growing up seeing that believing in themselves that they can do it because somebody else has. And I feel like that goes with any issue of like no minorities on our screens, hashtag Oscar so white. It starts, I mean, that's a different issue, but I think it like starts with the industry and like giving opportunity to
I think before I let Athena go on, I think this really speaks to the fact that everything really is interconnected.
Yeah.
You know, we can't just. I was having a very interesting conversation with Megan, somebody else at CHRW here, when I was doing the top 30 downstairs, and it's the conversation of, do you try and tackle everything at once, or do you try and solve one problem at a time, giving you the ability to look at resources for another problem and start a domino effect? But the reality is, whichever way we start to tackle it, it's all interconnected. The way we view minorities, the way we view women, the way we view immigrants, the way we view other parts of the world, it's all interconnected.
Yeah, for sure. Because once we start having female directors and female producers, you're going to have more females in female roles, and you're going to also control the way that the female image is, how boys are seeing women. We get to see them in a different perspective. I remember this film that I saw, Maggie's Plan, at TIFF this past year. It was directed by a female director, and it also had Greta Gerwig and Julianne Moore in it, and Ethan Hawke. So a predominantly female cast. And Ethan Hawke, it was so cool. He was speaking about how, like, I don't know why it's taking me so long in my career, but I've finally been directed by a woman, and it's so different, but it's amazing. But it's really different because they're putting me in these clothes that I've never worn before and making me act in different ways. So now I get to see how women want men to be portrayed. Yeah. So I thought that was amazing for him to say. So I think once we start having opportunities like that, it will change the way that men see women and how also women see themselves. So.
But also, I'm also going to say, how women see men.
Yeah, that's a whole. I mean, I've been talking too much. Go ahead.
No, Bianca, you've been saying really great things. I'm just like nodding my head, totally agreeing.
No. What do you think about how can we change the way that women perceive men, like, and do we think that it's realistic, and if not, like, how we can?
Oh, that's a whole nother show.
I know that's a whole
I'm not
nother
gonna lie.
But I feel like we could have this whole conversation on men as well.
Well, of course we could.
Yeah, so I think that's fair to have.
And before I give you one last chance to sort of wrap up, I think that's actually a completely fair assessment, is that not only are we having this conversation about feminism and how men perceive women, but I think in fairness and to help further the conversation, it needs to go the other way as well. It'd be really interesting to get a couple of guys in to talk about
no, that'd be so interesting. Next time, let's do that.
To grab a couple of, well, no, not like, to do a three-parter. We'll have a couple of guys come in, and we'll have guys talk about feminism, and then have everybody sit down. I like that idea.
Yeah, really
do it. Yeah.
So, so I've only got a couple of minutes left at the end of the show. Athena, what are your last thoughts?
I guess just to wrap up and summarize, and to reiterate what Bianca was saying, respect is super important. I mean, always, but especially in this situation. I think the importance of creating opportunities that both genders can access equally, but also respecting, a young girl's choice to select these opportunities, I guess. So not only providing the option there, but like the other day I saw on my newsfeed that there was this photo where, or like a cartoon, I guess, of a girl who was playing with like various lab equipment, I guess. And then her mom was like, oh, why aren't you over at Shelley's? And then she was like, oh, all she had were dolls. And I was like, well, I mean, I get the importance of promoting STEM fields to women because there aren't enough women in engineering, for example. There are tons in occupational therapy, but that's historically a very female-dominated profession. But in general, I understand, and I too want to promote the, I guess, involvement of more girls, I guess, in the sciences and maths. But I think we need to respect that young girls also want to play with dolls, and some do aspire to be fashion designers, or like singers. And like as a kid, I dreamed of being a singer too, right? Clearly not where I am right now, but I mean, like, I think it's important to not only provide these opportunities for girls, but to respect like what they choose is what they choose.
I don't think I could have put that any better myself, but I'm going to try anyway. Which is, I think at the end of the day, it all comes down to the right to choose. Feminism comes down to everybody should have or at least to me it does, should come down to everybody should have the right to choose their own destiny without bias. All right, that's the forum. Thank you, ladies, so much for this, and keep listening.
Yeah, thank you.